Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Sadia and today we'll discuss the anatomy of the thyroid gland and the parathyroid glands. So the thyroid gland is actually a H-shaped gland. It has two lobes. One is on the right side and another is on the left side, and these two lobes are connected with each other by the isthmus. So this is the isthmus, and this is the outward projection of the isthmus. This is called pyramidal lobe of the thyroid gland. So the lobes are somewhat pyramidal in shape. It has an apex which is touching to the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage, and the base which is ending up to the fourth or fifth tracheal ring. So it is this gland, H-shaped gland, is present over the trachea, and when it becomes enlarged, it compresses the trachea and causes the respiratory distress. So this gland has two capsule. One is true capsule and another is the false capsule. The true capsule is formed by the condensation of the thyroid tissue, and the false capsule is given by the pretracheal fascia, and this pretracheal fascia is derived from the deep cervical fascia. So this pretracheal fascia or the false capsule connects the thyroid gland to the larynx and the trachea. So whenever the thyroid gland moves during deglutition, it is actually the pretracheal fascia which connects it to the larynx and the trachea. So, and this is the anterior surface of the thyroid gland. This is the anterior border, this is the posterior border, this is the apex, this is the base, this is the superior surface, and this is the superior or anterior surface, this is the stomach, this is the outward projection which is somewhat on the left side, and this is called the pyramidal lobe. And the on the posterior surface, actually the four parathyroids are present. The superior parathyroids derived from the fourth pharyngeal pouch along with the ultimobranchial bodies or the parafollicular cells which releases the calcitonin. The lower parathyroid, and they are in constant position, and the lower parathyroids are present at the lower poles, and they actually drive with the thymus gland from the through the third pharyngeal pouch. So these are the superior parathyroid derived from the fourth pharyngeal pouch, and these are the inferior parathyroid derived from the third pharyngeal pouch along with the thymus. Sometimes what happens, the inferior parathyroids are actually drive with the thymus, and they follow the thymus and they entered into the lower part of the neck or in the superior mediastinum. So their inferior parathyroids have no constant position. Otherwise, the superior parathyroid, along with the along with the posterior border of the thyroid gland, they have a constant position. So we'll move forward. This is the posterior surface. This is the isthmus. This is the pyramidal lobe. This is the superior parathyroid. Over the posterior surface, in mid of the posterior border of the thyroid gland, these are the inferior parathyroids. And today we'll discuss the what are the objectives of the thyroid gland, anatomy of the thyroid gland we will discuss, and the other important glandular tissues like parathyroid hormone and parathyroid glands we will discuss, and parathyroid glands along with we will compare the parathyroid glands function along with the calcitonin function because they have opposite function, and the calcitonin is actually derived from the parafollicular cells, and the relation of the nerves very important, and the examiners will ask the relation of the nerves with the arteries. What is the relation of the superior thyroid artery with the external laryngeal nerve and inferior thyroid artery with the recurrent laryngeal nerve? Everything we'll discuss in a while. Acha. So what happened, sometimes the thyroid gland, the person born with one or more parathyroid glands embedded in the thyroid, the thymus or elsewhere in the chest. Sometimes the parathyroid, inferior parathyroid will not present its inferior poles of the thyroid gland. They actually move with the origin of the thymus, and sometimes they will reach in the lower part of the neck or in the superior or posterior mediastinum. So elsewhere in the chest you will find mostly this happen with the inferior parathyroid. In most such cases, however, the gland's function is normal because the parathyroids are there. They are not matlab agenesis of the parathyroid is not there. They are there, but the position is somewhat different. Acha. They actually, what is the para function of the parathyroid? They release the parathyroid hormone, and they keep the calcium in the blood. ठीक है, they are required to monitor the calcium level in the blood. The parathyroid hormone wants the calcium in the blood. If the calcium is decreased, the parathyroid hormone will decrease. And when the calcium level in the blood is too low, the cells of the parathyroid sense it. They have receptors. They sense the level of the calciums in the blood, and make more parathyroid hormone. Once the parathyroid hormone is released into the blood, it circulates to act on different places. Which are the different places? It increases the osteoclastic activity of the bone, and it releases the bone calcium from the bones. It increases the absorption of the calcium from the small intestine. It increases the absorption of the calcium from proximal convoluted tubule, and it inhibits the absorption of phosphate. So it via the absorption from the small intestine and PCT, and release of calcium from the bones, it increases the calcium in the blood. So this is the normal mechanism. So when the calcium level in the blood is too high, the cells of the parathyroid, when the calcium levels in the blood is too high, what happened? This is a negative feedback for the parathyroid gland, and it will not release the PTH, thereby allowing the calcium levels to decrease. This feedback mechanism runs constantly, thereby maintaining the calcium in a very narrow or normal range. For a normal calcium in a blood, it is very necessary. It is very necessary to respond the parathyroid gland, because the parathyroid gland are the glands which sense the calcium levels in the blood, and actually when it is decreased, it maintains the calcium in the blood. So in a normal person with a normal parathyroid glands, their parathyroid glands will turn on or off dozens of times per day, because there is the duty of the parathyroids to maintain the calcium levels in the blood in an attempt to keep the calcium level in the normal range, so our brain and the muscles function properly. What is the function of the calcitonin? What it will do? When the calcium levels are increased in the blood, the calcitonin will come and actually take the calcium from the blood, and it deposits into the bone and other areas. So calcitonin, it has a reverse action. It has an opposite action of the parathyroid hormone. So these two hormones both work together, but in an opposite fashion. The calcitonin is a hormone involved in calcium and phosphorus metabolism. The major source of calcitonin is from the parafollicular or C cells in the thyroid gland, but is also synthesized in a wide variety of other tissues. So calcitonin is mostly synthesized by the parafollicular cells in the thyroid gland, and their function is, and it releases from the parafollicular cells when the calcium level in the blood is increased, and it actually take backs the calcium from the blood, and it decreases the osteoclastic activity of the bone, and it deposits all the calcium to the bone again. Otherwise, what happened? Parathyroid hormone is just taking the blood calcium from the bone, and when the calcitonin is not there, so what happened? The bones become brittle due to the increased release of the calcium, and the calcitonin function is to back the calcium, to it back the calcium to the bones, and it increases the strength of the bone. So calcitonin suppresses the reabsorption. Sorry, the calcitonin has levels at least in part of facts of two. So what will happen? The calcitonin suppresses the reabsorption of bone by inhibiting the activity of osteoclast. So it decreases the activity of osteoclast, and it a cell type that digests the bone matrix, releasing. So osteoclast, what it will do? It digests the bone matrix, releases the calcium and phosphorus into the blood. So it gives back the calcium to the bone and re-strengthen the bone. And what happened? The calcium major function is of the calcium is to reabsorb the calcium, but calcitonin calcitonin inhibits the tubular reabsorption of the two ions, leading to calcium and phosphorus. It inhibits the absorption of calcium through the kidney, calcitonin, because it wants calcium level is decreased in the blood, and the parathyroid hormone wants to increase the calcium in the blood. So calcitonin inhibits the tubular reabsorption of these two ions, leading to increased rates of their loss in the urine. And calcitonin causes the loss in the urine, calcium to lose in the urine, and phosphorus both, because it maintains the calcium in the blood, and it decreases the osteoclastic activity. For parathyroid hormone, it increases the osteoclastic activity. So they have somewhat opposite action. One is increasing the calcium in the blood, like parathyroid hormone, and one is calcitonin is decreasing the calcium in the blood, and the one is increasing the osteoclastic activity of the bone and releasing the calcium from the bone, and taking the calcium from the small intestine, and it also taking the calcium from the through the kidney. But the calcitonin is totally reverse. It releasing the calcium into the urine, and it is not absorbing from the small intestine, and it actually stops the osteoclastic activity, and the whatever the calcium present in the blood, it takes back and gives to the bones back and re-strengthen the bones. So these are the both opposite hormones which work together. So control of secretion of calcitonin, the most prominent factor controlling the calcitonin secretion is extracellular concentration of ionized calcium. Whenever the calcium levels are increased in the blood, calcitonin will release. Elevated blood calcium levels strongly stimulate the calcitonin secretion, and secretion is suppressed when the calcium concentration falls below normal. So whenever the concentration will decrease, the calcitonin will inhibit by itself. So hypocalcemia. What is hypocalcemia? Refers to the low blood calcium concentration. Clinical signs of this disorder reflect increased neuromuscular excitability that leads to tetany, and increased muscular spasms. Okay, so nerve excitability or muscular excitability along with the spasms are called a condition is formed. This is tetany, and the cardiac dysfunction is also present due to the hypocalcemia. What is the hypercalcemia? It indicates a concentration of blood calcium level is increased in the blood, and the normal concentration of calcium and phosphate in the blood and extracellular fluids is near saturation point. Elevations can lead to diffuse precipitation of, so calcium when it is increased, it start deposited into the tissues, and leads to the widespread organ dysfunction and the damage. So increased calcium is also very dangerous. It causes the widespread damage of the widespread organ dysfunction or damage. So this is very lethal sometimes. So what is primary parathyroidism? In the result of parathyroid gland disease, most commonly due to the parathyroid tumor. So whenever the adenoma or benign tumor occur in the parathyroid gland, which secretes the hormone without proper regulation. So whenever the tumor is occur, the the condition is it is not in regulation, it is out of regulation. So increased amounts are produced by the by the parathyroid gland, and common manifestation of this disorder, what happens due to the increased PTH in the blood, increased calcium in the blood and concentration, hypercalcemia will occur, and kidney stones will form. Decalcification of the bone, decalcification of the bone beta leads to the brittle bones, increased fractures in a patient. So the secondary parathyroidism. What is the secondary parathyroidism? It is the situation where the disease outside the parathyroid gland. It means the parathyroid hormone is released by the parathyroid gland, but actually the parathyroid glands are not affected in this. Secondary parathyroidism leads to excessive secretion of parathyroid hormone. A common cause of this disorder is kidney disease. Actually, if the kidneys are unable to resorb calcium, blood calcium levels will fall, and then due to the fall of the blood calcium levels, the PTH will release. So in this condition, the kidney is not absorbing the calcium, so that's why the calcium is very much decreased in the blood. And due to the less calcium in the blood, the stimulus will go to the parathyroid glands, and the parathyroid gland will release to the parathyroid hormone. So what is the other cause of the secondary parathyroidism? When the inadequate nutrition, patient is malnutrited, and the diets that are deficient in calcium and vitamin D. So those patients who are malnutrited and they are not taking proper calcium and vitamin D, they also suffer from the secondary parathyroidism. And whenever the calcium level is decreased in the blood, parathyroid glands releases the increased amount of parathyroid hormone. So this is a normal phenomenon. A prominent effect of secondary parathyroidism is decalcification on them. Whatever the cause is, whether it is primary parathyroidism, whether it is secondary parathyroidism, decalcification of the bones will occur. Bones actually directly affected due to the increased levels of the parathyroid and leading to the pathological fractures or the rubber bones. Actually, bones are badly affected due to the increased release of the parathyroid hormone. Whether the parathyroid glands have developed a tumor in case of primary parathyroidism or in the secondary parathyroidism, whether the patient is malnutrited or not taking the proper diet which is having a calcium or vitamin D in it, or the kidneys are affected which are not absorbing the calcium. So in both cases the bones will suffer badly and develops the pathological fractures. So we'll move forward. This is an H-shaped gland. It is united other by the isthmus. Isthmus is present in the second, third, and fourth tracheal rings, and these are pyramidal lobes. The apex is actually touching to the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage, and base is up to the fourth and fifth tracheal rings. So it is over the trachea. Basically, the largest endocrine gland. It releases the thyroid hormone triiodothyronine, T3, T4, thyroxine. It increases the basal metabolic rate of the body, and it releases the thyrocalcitonin, and जो है it which antagonizes the PTH. We have discussed how the calcitonin and PTH antagonize in each other, and it has a high vascularity. So this is again a thyroid gland. This is a larynx. This is trachea. It is over the. So what are the medial relations of the thyroid gland, like the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, and behind that we have an esophagus. So these are the midline relations or the medial relations of the thyroid gland: the pharynx, larynx, and the trachea, and uh, the posterolateral relations are common carotid artery and interjugular vein. I will show you in a while. So this is a thyroid gland again. This is an isthmus. This is outpouching of the isthmus. That's this pyramidal lobe. These are the two lateral lobes, and these are pyramidal in shape, and they're connected by each other via the isthmus. So this is the posterior surface of the thyroid gland. These are the parathyroid gland. These are superior parathyroid gland and inferior parathyroid gland. These parathyroid glands are about 6 millimeter in diameter. They have a same blood supply as the thyroid have. They have the same uh, uh, lymphatic drainage as the thyroid have, and they same have a venous drainage. Everything is same in the case of parathyroid. Blood supply, the nerve supply, the everything is same. So we'll discuss everything. This is the H-shaped gland, butterfly H-shaped gland hai. It is about 5 inches long, 3 centimeters wide, and 2 centimeters in anterior posterior diameter. Isthmus is about 1.2 to 1.2 centimeter, 1.2 centimeter long and 1.2 centimeter in width. The weight of the gland is 25 grams. It is more larger in females, and it is more enlarged in pregnancy and maturation, especially in females. So it has a true capsule which I have described. It is the true capsule is actually from the condensation tissue condensation of the thyroid gland, and which actually sends the samples inside the true capsule, and arteries and plexus of veins is present below the true capsule, and the false capsule is formed by the pretracheal fascia or the deep cervical fascia, which joins the thyroid gland to the larynx and the trachea. This pretracheal fascia, actually, what happened whenever the larynx move up and down, when the larynx moves up and down, so the thyroid gland will follow the movements of the larynx, because this pretracheal fascia connected the thyroid gland to the larynx and the trachea. Whenever the larynx moves up and down, the this through this pretracheal fascia, the thyroid gland also moves with the it follows the movements of the larynx. So this pretracheal fascia connects the thyroid gland to the larynx and trachea. This is an extension of the pretracheal fascia which connects the thyroid gland to the cricoid cartilage. This is called suspensory ligaments of Barry. So this is very important. Whenever the thyroid swelling will occur, it moves on deglutition because of the pretracheal fascia, which connects the thyroid gland to the larynx and the trachea. It moves during deglutition and speech. Suspensory ligament of Barry is the extension of the pretracheal fascia, which connects it to the cricoid cartilage. So histology, there's it. The true capsule will send the septi inside and it converts it into the lobes and the lobules, and the follicles filled with colloid, and the lobules contains the follicles, and follicles filled with colloid, and that colloid when joins with the iodine it forms the triiodine and the thyroxine T4 or T3. Parafollicular cells, clear cells, and the pale cells. The chief cells sorry, clear parafollicular cells, clear cells, and the pale cells releases the thyrocalcitonin, ultimobranchial body, which drive from the जो है आपका fourth pharyngeal pouch along with the superior parathyroids, and the colloid when joins with the iodine it form iodothyroglobulin. So these are this is the colloid, and these are the parafollicular cells. These parafollicular cells, clear cells, will release the जो है आपका calcitonin. So this is again the relations of the thyroid gland. This is the anterior surface, anterior border, posterior border. This is the thymus, which is over the second, third, and fourth tracheal ring. This is the left lobe. This is the right lobe of the thyroid gland. It is somewhat conical in shape. It has an apex. It has a base. Three surfaces like lateral surface. And this is the medial surface and posterior lateral surface. At the back, and this is the anterior surface. Two borders, anterior border and the posterior border. Oblique line of apex touches to the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage, base up to the fourth and the fifth tracheal ring. So this is an anatomy of the thyroid or relations of the thyroid gland. Isthmus has a, this is the isthmus, which has an anterior surface and posterior surface touching to the tracheal rings, and two borders. One is the superior border and other is the inferior border surface, and the skin and fascia. The anterior surface covered by an skin, fascia, anterior jugular veins. Anterior jugular veins will come downward over the stomach, and the sternohyoid and sternothyroid muscles, and the posterior surface 2 to 4, 2, 3, 4 tracheal, and it is in contact with the second, third, and fourth tracheal rings, the posterior surface, and the superior border anastomose by the right and the left superior thyroid arteries. The superior thyroid arteries, which are the branches of the external carotid arteries, which are going come downward and over the superior border, they unite with each other. The inferior border, inferior thyroid vein will leave. So inferior thyroid veins, uh, they will come through the lower border of the stomach over the trachea. They join with each other and they open into the left brachiocephalic vein. So these are the anterior and the posterior relations of the isthmus, and the thyroid gland will move forward. Pyramidal lobe, this extends superiorly from thymus on the side of the left lobe. So this is actually left of the midline and actually extends, and this is a projection of the stomach, and actually the left of the midline, and it attaches to via the fibrous band or via the muscular band to the hyoid bone. To the hyoid bone, attached to the body of the hyoid bone by fibromuscular. It could be fibrous only, it could be muscular only. If it is muscular only, it is called levator glanduli thyroidae. But if it is sometimes the it is of fibrous and muscular type. Both varieties are present. The fibrous band is also present. The muscular band is also present. Sometimes it is wholly muscular band which attaches it to the pyramidal lobe to the hyoid bone, and sometimes it only fibrous. So will we I have pictures of this. I will show you in a while. So it is unilateral. It could be unilateral. It on the one side. It could be bilateral also. So it's pyramidal lobe. It could be unilateral. It could be bilateral. It is attached via the fibrous band or muscular band, or both components are present like fibromuscular band which connects it to the hyoid bone. Okay, we'll move forward. What is the blood supply of the thyroid gland, the superior thyroid artery. It is the branch of the external carotid artery, and it is actually accompanied with the external laryngeal nerve, which supplies the cricothyroid. What will do the cricothyroid? It actually cricothyroid is the all the laryngeal muscles supplied by the recurrent laryngeal, the only muscle which is supplied by the external laryngeal nerve, that is cricothyroid, and it tenses the vocal cord and it causes the vocalization. It is very important. This muscle is very important in case of singers, when it gives the pitch to the voice. Whenever the pitch of the voice is decreased, the whenever this nerve is damaged, what happened? The pitch of the voice is decreased. So it is bad for the those who are singers, because they will not produce a longer pitch. So this is better the branch. This is the superior thyroid artery, which is the branch of the external carotid artery. Okay, this is coming downward over the superior border of the isthmus. This is the pyramidal lobe, and this is the superior thyroid vein, which opens into the internal jugular vein. So, and this is the middle thyroid vein, which also opens into the internal jugular vein. This is an inferior thyroid vein, which is coming from the inferior border of the isthmus, lower down over the trachea, unites with each other and opens. Sometimes it opens into the left and the right brachiocephalic vein, and sometimes it opens, both unite with each other and inferior thyroid veins and opens into the left brachiocephalic vein. So it varies. So I told you the media about the medial relations like pharynx, larynx, and trachea. So these are the lateral relations. These are the common carotid arteries. They form the lateral relations. And the जो muscles हैं like sternothyroid, sternohyoid, the superior belly of omohyoid, sternocleidomastoid, they cover the thyroid gland anteriorly. So these are the lateral relations, common carotid artery and internal jugular veins, and the medial relations, pharynx, larynx, and trachea. And see, this is the thyroidema. This is another third artery, that is the thyroidema artery. It is actually coming from the common carotid arteries or directly from the arch of aorta. It is moving up over the thyroid, tracheal rings upward, and it supplies the thyroid gland. So this is a third artery, which is called the thyroidema artery. The second artery is this the thyrocervical trunk, which is coming from the subclavian artery. It is going on the posterior surface over the posterior border, and it supplies the thyroid gland. This artery, the inferior thyroid artery, this thyroidema artery is present in very less people, percentage of people. It is present in only 3% of the people. So it may be or may not be present, and it will damage during the tracheostomy. जब हम trachea को open करते हैं, whenever the respiratory distress is occurring in any patient, we have to do the tracheostomy, and we have to put a hole in the trachea and put a tube, tracheostomy tube inside. So this artery will damage in that case. So this inferior thyroid artery is actually accompanied with the recurrent laryngeal nerve, the nerve which supplies the all the muscles of the larynx except the cricothyroid, which is supplied by the external laryngeal nerve. So we have discussed the superior thyroid artery along with the external laryngeal and nerve, and what is the function of the external laryngeal nerve when it will not work, or whether it is damaged during the thyroid operations. The pitch of the voice in the patient will decrease. But regarding to the recurrent laryngeal nerve, we'll discuss in a while. What is recurrent laryngeal nerve? It is actually a nerve which is actually above and below the thyroid artery. When it is get damaged, if one side of the recurrent laryngeal nerve will damage, what happened? The hoarseness of the voice occur in a patient. जो voice is become hoarse, or it becomes so heavy. And whenever the two sides of the recurrent laryngeal nerve are damaged, which is very less likely, it can cause the laryngeal spasm or severe respiratory distress. And in that case immediately we have to go for the tracheostomy. So this is all about. So inferior thyroid artery, the largest branch of the thyrocervical trunk, I have showed you right now, pass behind the carotid sheath or middle cervical ganglion and in front of the vertebral artery, terminate near the lower pole, and it accompanies with the recurrent laryngeal nerve. If one side of the recurrent laryngeal nerve will damage, what happened? The hoarseness of the voice will occur if the two sides of the laryngeal nerve, recurrent laryngeal nerve gets damaged. What happened? The laryngeal spasm or severe respiratory distress leads to the tracheostomy. So this you have to know. So again, this is the superior thyroid artery. This is the superior thyroid vein. So and this is an external laryngeal nerve. So these structures are present: the external laryngeal nerve, artery, and the vein. And these are the inferior thyroid veins. Inferior thyroid veins joins with each other, running over the trachea and coming from the lower border of the stomach and joins to the left brachiocephalic vein. Or sometimes the right side, it opens into the right brachiocephalic and the left side. So this condition will vary from patient to patient. And this is the middle thyroid vein. And middle thyroid vein is also, this is the middle thyroid, sorry, this is the middle thyroid. It opens into the internal jugular vein. So superior thyroid and the middle thyroid both opens into the internal jugular vein. So thyroidema artery, thyroidema lowest thyroid artery 3%, which is coming from the carotid artery sometimes, from the arch of aorta, from the brachiocephalic artery. Oh, sorry, these are the brachiocephalic arteries, common internal carotid artery and external, they are upward. So this is the common carotid artery. This is the arch of aorta. So sometimes it comes from the aorta, brachiocephalic trunk, right common carotid, right subclavian. So these are the variation. Mostly it comes from the arch of aorta and the brachiocephalic trunk on the right side, brachiocephalic tongue, or the common carotid artery. So from the lower border of the stomach, it goes up. So whenever it gets damaged during the tracheostomy, it damages during the tracheostomy, enter the lower border of the stomach and during tracheostomy, it will damage and accessory thyroid arteries. And we have also more accessory thyroid arteries are present, which are actually in this. That's why this gland is very vascularized: the superior thyroid artery, the middle thyroid artery, thyroidema artery, and some or other accessory thyroid may or may not be present. That's why this gland is very very vascular. So the superior thyroid vein, beta, it enters into the internal jugular vein. The superior thyroid vein accompany with the superior thyroid artery, and it opens into the internal jugular vein. So it is opening into the internal jugular vein. We'll move forward. Venous drainage. The middle thyroid vein drains into the internal jugular. So this is a middle thyroid which opens into the internal jugular vein. The inferior thyroid veins I already showed you. Sometimes it opens. The right one opens into the right brachiocephalic, the left one opens into the left brachiocephalic. Sometimes they unite with each other and both opens into the left brachiocephalic. So it depends. It left lymphatic drainage of the thyroid gland and the parathyroid gland into the deep cervical nodes. And the blood supply of the parathyroid glands is also the superior thyroid artery and the inferior thyroid artery. So the thyroid gland and the parathyroid glands have same blood supply. The superior thyroid artery and the inferior thyroid artery have same lymphatic drainage into the through the pre and paratracheal. It enters into the deep cervical nodes. और जो है आपका, it has the same sympathetic supply from the superior, middle, and inferior cervical ganglia. So they have nearby, they have a same blood supply, venous drainage, and the sympathetic supply. So this is a superior thyroid artery. This is the superior thyroid vein. Superior thyroid vein opens into the internal jugular vein, and these are the posterolateral relations. Like this is the आपका जो है common carotid artery, and this is the internal jugular vein. So these are the posterolateral relations. Here the brachiocephalic trunk, here the common carotid artery, and the subclavian artery. So these are the posterolateral relations of the thyroid gland. Median relations or medial relations are pharynx, larynx, and trachea. So these are the pretracheal nodes and paratracheal nodes. Through the pre and paratracheal, the lymphatic goes to the deep cervical nodes, which is jugular-digastric, along with the jugular vein. So this is the middle thyroid vein opens into the internal jugular, and this is the inferior thyroid veins opens onto the brachiocephalic veins. So these are the lymphatics. This is the jugular-digastric nodes, where the where the thyroid drainage will go, thyroid or parathyroid. ठीक है. So these are, this is the medial relations, these are the posterolateral relations, these are the pretracheal nodes, these are the paratracheal nodes, and these are the jugular-digastric nodes. So pre and paratracheal nodes will receive the lymphatic, then it will go up to the jugular-digastric. So this is the sympathetic supply will go from the superior cervical ganglion, the middle cervical ganglion, and the inferior cervical ganglion. So this will give the sympathetic supply to the thyroid gland. So what is the applied anatomy? The presence of thyroidema, chance of I already told you the thyroidema will go upward from the brachiocephalic artery, or from the common carotid artery, or from the arch of aorta. When it arises, it goes up over the trachea, and when during the tracheostomy there's a chances of bleeding procedure in the neck below the isthmus. So thyroglossal cyst, what are thyroglossal cysts? The thyroglossal cyst from the foramen cecum will come downward, and it forms the thyroid gland. So whenever the remnants of the thyroglossal ducts occur at any point in the way, their descent, they form the thyroglossal cyst. They are also in the midline, and they secrete the mucus secretion in it. Sometimes these thyroglossal cysts will become burst and forms the thyroglossal fistula. So these thyroglossal cysts are attached with the hyoid body of the hyoid bone. So whenever we have to operate these thyroglossal cysts with our midline and moving with the swallowing, okay, so up and down. So we have to remove, along with the thyroglossal cysts, we have to remove the body of the hyoid bone as well. So the pyramidal lobe, I've showed you pyramidal lobe, which is actually projection of the stomach, and actually it is the left of the midline. It is when it become muscular, when it is muscular, it is called the levator glanduli thyroidae. I have pictures I will show you in a while. Ectopic thyroid glands, when the thyroid gland is at a normal position, but there are another foci like the lingual thyroid, the present at the root of the tongue, because the thyroglossal duct is coming down at descent from the foramen cecum. So sometimes the ectopic thyroid is present at the root of the tongue, that is called the lingual thyroid, or higher place above and below the hyoid bone. Accessory thyroid glands in stomach is also present, or in the thyroid muscles. Neoplastic non-inflammatory enlargement of the thyroid gland is called goiter. Goiter is occur mostly due to the deficiency of the iodine. So this is a goiter. Sometimes what happened is sternothyroid actually fixes the thyroid to the larynx. So the expansion of the thyroid from outside will less, and it will go downward behind the sternum. That condition is called sternothyroid. It causes the pressure symptoms and nerve involvement. It causes the pressure over the trachea, because it is present over the trachea, and causes the respiratory distress. Sometimes it causes the dysphagia, difficulty in eating. Why? Because it compresses the esophagus and causes the dysphagia. And sometimes it involves the nerves as well. And sometimes uh, it causes the venous congestion. It gives the pressure over the internal jugular veins, and into to the it becomes so much enlarged, it pressure gives the pressure over the internal jugular veins, the brachiocephalic veins, and the superior vena cava. So it causes the venous engorgement as well, venous compression as well. The compression of the trachea, I told you, so causes the respiratory problem, and over the carotid sheath, like over the internal jugular vein and common carotid artery. And venous engorgement is over the internal jugular vein, sometimes over the brachiocephalic vein, sometimes over the superior vena cava. So venous engorgement or venous distension will occur. So endemic goiter in the thyroid gland, I showed you so much enlarged goiter because of the iodine deficiency. So we'll do the subtotal thyroidectomy. We'll remove the whole of the thyroid gland, and we will leave a chip at the behind. Why? Because we have to save the parathyroid gland, and we have to save the little bit tissue which releases the T3 and T4 for the metabolic activity of the body. Subtotal thyroidectomy, often preferred in hyperthyroidism, to preserve the external and recurrent laryngeal nerve, to preserve the parathyroid glands, and to prevent the post-operative myxedema. मतलब to matlab it, the small chip behind will actually is releasing the thyroid hormones to maintain the metabolic activity. Otherwise, the complications will occur in a patient. So during the thyroid removal, if the thyroid gland is too much enlarged, we will remove the whole of the thyroid gland, but we leave a chip of the tissue behind to preserve the nerves, to preserve the parathyroid gland, to preserve the matlab, hypothyroidism in a patient. So injury of the recurrent laryngeal nerve, in when a nerve is damaged, hoarseness of the voice will occur. If the two nerves are both side will damage, then aphonia, the patient is not able to talk, dysphonation or laryngeal spasm or very severe respiratory distress. The vocal cord will come in the midline or the paramedian position. What so it depends on that also. So recurrent laryngeal nerve supply the all laryngeal muscles except the cricothyroid. Non-recurrent laryngeal nerve, injury to the external laryngeal nerve. All the muscles supplied by the recurrent laryngeal except one, that is the external laryngeal nerve, which supplies the cricothyroid and which actually tenses the vocal cord and produce the vocalization. And removal of removal, if during the surgery you have removed the whole thyroid gland and you have removed the parathyroid glands along with it, it will develop the tetany. I already told you the parathyroid, whenever the calcium levels in the blood is decreased, the parathyroid hormone will release, and it maintains the calcium in the blood. So it's otherwise the calcium is decreased, the neuromuscular problems will happen, excitability will increase, and it causes the tetany. So this is the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Sometimes it is very closer to the artery, inferior thyroid artery, and sometimes it is a little bit far away. So the recurrent laryngeal nerve, inferior thyroid artery lie close to each other, hence the ligature to the thyroid artery. During the removal of the thyroid gland, the surgeon puts a ligature over the. He wants to put a ligature over the thyroid, inferior thyroid artery, but the nerve also comes with it and causes the recurrent laryngeal nerve damage. Should be applied away from the gland as the nerve shows viable relation with the artery. At this time, at times the nerve is in front or back between the loops of the inferior thyroid, which should be the surgeon should be very careful when he is tying the inferior thyroid artery. He or she has to save the recurrent laryngeal nerve on the on each side of the gland. So anomalies of the shape, position, ectopic thyroid glands, what is the remnants of the thyroid gland, we'll discuss all the anomalies in a while. So this is a thyroid gland, this is the pyramidal lobe, and it is connected with a fibrous band to the hyoid bone. So this is a fibrous band. Via the fibrous band, the pyramidal lobe is connected to the hyoid bone. So the pyramidal lobe is not coming, in this case the pyramidal lobe is not coming through the stomach, or it is coming from the right lobe of the thyroid gland, and it is muscular. So it is levator glanduli thyroidy, but the position is not from the stomach, left of the midline, which is normal. So it's coming from the right lobe and it's going up and it is connected with the thyroid. Oh, sorry, it is connected with the hyoid bone. So here it is fibrous component is also present and muscular component is also present. So this is a fibromuscular band. So it contains both components and it attaches the thyroid gland to the hyoid bone. Here there's no stomach around. The pyramidal lobe is coming from the left lobe of the thyroid gland. Here the left and the left lobe is present and the stomach is present and the right lobe is not present. So these are the variations. So this is in this case the left lobe is present, there's no stomach, there's no right lobe. So these are the variations of the thyroid gland. So this is there's no union between the two lobes. The stomach is actually present, but it is not united with the left lobe, and the pyramidal lobe is coming from the left lobe. So this is, and the muscular part is connected to the hyoid bone is called levator glanduli thyroid. So this is the right and the left lobe of the thyroid gland. The stomach, this is levator glanduli thyroid, which is connected to the hyoid bone. So ectopic thyroid gland, sometimes it is present, it is called lingual thyroid, sometimes inside the substance of the trunk, intralingual thyroid. inside the substance of the tongue, and sometimes is outside the, that is lingual thyroid, in the posterior posterior one third of the tongue. And sometimes it is suprahyoid, so it is suprahyoid, and sometimes this is infrahyoid. So these are the different positions of the thyroid gland, and this is the normal position of the thyroid gland, which is over the third, fourth, fifth tracheal rings. So this is thyroid cartilage, and this is the hyoid bone. So sometimes it is suprahyoid, and sometimes it is infrahyoid. These are the ectopic positions. Along with the normal thyroid gland, these are the ectopic tissues of the thyroid gland is present sometimes in the intralingual tissue or lingual thyroid, and this is suprahyoid, this is the hyoid bone, this is suprahyoid, and this is the infrahyoid. So this is a thyroglossal cyst, which is formed during the descent of the thyroglossal duct down. So it develops, and in its course, the thyroglossal cyst, and this cyst contains the mucus secretion. Whenever this cyst is infected and discharges the mucus secretion outward, and this is called thyroglossal cyst fistula. Thyroglossal cyst fistula. So whenever this cyst will remove, you have to remove the body of the hyoid bone with it. And this cyst moves with the with the deglutition, because the thyroid gland is actually due to the pretracheal fascia, it is fixed with the larynx and trachea with it. So it follows the movements of the larynx, and it moves during the deglutition or swallowing. Thank you so much. Sorry, this is the new thyroid gland also develops the neoplasms as well, and this is a tumor of the. It could be the neoplasm could be benign and could be malignant. So this is the neoplasm or the tumor of the thyroid gland. So it can develop the enlargement only due to the deficiency of iodine, or it can develop the tumor as well, and all other conditions we have discussed today. And this is, thank you so much.